If Civilization Started Over, episode 4. So if you do end up enjoying the video, please do end up liking and subscribing. It would be greatly appreciated. And first let me do a little recap. So last episode we saw the collapse of Norway and the creation of we saw the collapse of Sweden and the creation of Norway, and we also saw the discovery of Ireland and red team expansion as always, green team expansion, and the collapse of this nation right here, the creation of the Nepalese Empire, and the discovery of Bulgaria and the other nations here, and also the creation of Crimea, also the discovery of Russia, which will be a very important nation in this video. So now that we know what happened, let's now get into the actual video. So the first thing that we're going to look at is the nation of Denmark. As Denmark right here is a very what we're going to see happening is the full-on collapse of the Danish Empire, as many factions will declare independence. Mostly these four other factions will also declare independence. I think I'm also gonna make a small faction in this corner right here, the Polish faction, which will be what is happening now. Oh, it's just the Polish faction will also declare independence. It's definitely the weakest, as it only occupies this major city. So let's get into the civil war. So the Danish is probably the second strongest nation in the world, behind the red team, which the red team is also stagnating a little bit, as we're going to see a massive incursions of troops in these areas right here, as the Netherlands nation right here will do massive expansions in the Netherlands, and but the green team, which is mostly the nation that is fighting here, will do the most out of this. They will be focusing on the factions before we're going to see Sweden start a invasion. Sweden right here is a nation that practically hates Denmark, as they also need some slaves. Yeah, so we're going to see more. We're going to see Sweden claim these two islands right here before massive Danish troops come to stop them. But we're going to see more. This oldest German nation focus on cutting off the mainland Denmark parts from the Germanic parts, and they will succeed, which will lead to this entire area being cut off from each faction. Is now, and also now we're going to see this faction, which is probably the weakest. It is the weakest, but it's the most isolated one. So since they managed to capture these newly annexed areas right here, and they will also manage to capture one major city, which that will probably become their capital if they do not make a new major city, as they will occupy these areas right here. And Poland, which is probably one of the weakest factions here, will manage to get this major city instead of this country, and this will lead to the Poland capturing all of this land right here. When this nation right here started moving a little bit up into mainland Denmark, what you're going to see the Danish ask for independence. So let's look at this peace treaty. So the peace treaty will be all these nations gain independence, plus Sweden gaining these islands and this island right here. So now we're going to look at a large amount of expansion. As Sweden will be starting to get a little bit cocky about their land, as they're gonna expand amazingly, as they're going to expand all the way to Russia's border right here. And after Russia, we'll see what Sweden is doing to their people. Russia has a very nationalistic population, as Russia's population has been one of the most nationalistic populations ever. So the Russians will manage to gain some Estonians that live in Sweden that kind of know Swedish but not fully, and they're going to tell those Estonians to go to Norway right here and talk to them about a coalition on Sweden. So after Russia will realize that okay, now we have all these countries. So when the Russians talk to the Norwegians, so when the Russians will talk to the Norwegians will gladly accept, because the Norwegians practically hate the Swedish. So we're going to see Norwegians the Norwegians and the Swedish have one of the best navies. The Norwegians don't have. The Norwegians, when they were rebelling, most of Sweden's eastern ports were this side, so they managed to gain the eastern ports. But we're going to see Norwegian troops enter in these areas and this area right here, and also enter in the more unindustrialized areas. Then we're also gonna see Russian troops for the first time, not the first time, will start moving into Estonia, and the Russian troops in Estonia will be practically led with open arms as the Estonian people that live here, so as I was saying, we're going to see more Russian troops enter in Finland until Finland says no to the Russians and ends up declaring independence. As this will be bad for the Swedish right here, as the Swedish were not expecting this, as they will try to defend this area right here. As we're also going to see, I'm going to make these rebellions any color. We're going to see a massive green rebellion right here in Kaliningrad, which is not Estonian people. They're the same people as the Polish right here. So as Norwegian troops, which are most likely the troops that are the most familiar with these areas, will be the ones fighting the most. And these troops will do the smartest move yet, which will be encircling the southern area right here, which is practically Sweden's capital region. And we're going to see more people expand right here, these areas right here, as we're going to see this area. After these areas will be fully taken over by the Swedish, we're going to see Norwegian troops start entering in these areas. And the Russians, seeing that the Swedes are about to lose, we're going to see more moves of Russian expansion in these areas, and they're also gonna expand down south to these Latvian areas. And for the first time ever, we're going to see the white tribes invade these areas right here, and they're going to managed to claim this area just in time, right be after right after the Swedish will be fully captured. So let's look at this peace treaty. So the peace treaty will be greatly devastating for the Swedish Empire, as the Norwegians will be the Norwegians right here will be practically creating their own imperial land, and also the Danish will gain back their old territory, which they had to go to. The peace treaty before was talking about giving that territory to the Norwegians, but they had to go to the Norwegians specifically and practically beg. Two nations who gained independence from the Swedish, this country and this country. And the Russians right here will gain all of what this world calls Estonia, and that's this entire area, which will grow the Russians greatly to their absolute greatest extent yet. So yeah, that'll be the practical collapse of the Swedish. Now we're going to look at now we're going to look at the Nepalese. The Nepalese are kind of very expansionist. They're expansionist, and they're also getting very unstable, as the Nepalese own a high amount of land right here. They own the most colonial land in the entire world. The red team owns some. So yeah, we're just gonna see them expand, and also Bulgaria, which I'm gonna start calling this nation, I already said that, will also start expanding more into Romania, where this nation will kind of be one of the strongest. And also this country right here. Yeah, this country will be losing territory, as they will lose territory to this new nation right here, which I'm going to ultimately call Romania, as this nation is a fairly new country, so it makes sense why they're losing that territory. The people there don't like how they're being treated. So we're going to see this country put their capital here, right here. Which this country will be also a very expansionist power. It will expand all the way to down here, which is pretty big. And now Europe is almost fully claimed by nations, as we're going to see this blue new, I don't know what to call this country, but this tree will ultimately also expand, as they didn't like the original borders. And also Kaliningrad, we'll see how weak they are and how potent they are to expansion, to destruction, and they will do the smart move here and also expand greatly into the old territory of this nation and some extra. But we're not just gonna see expansions and only expansions, as we're going to see a new nation form up very close to the Alps here, but not in the Alps. This nation will be cutting off the red team from any further expansion, as this nation will form right here. And this country will be the only nation as this country will be also very bad enemies with the red team. The red team was planning to expand into that territory, and this is just tribes that chose to form a country right here, as they're going to make their capital the closest tribal city which is here. That is the biggest tribal city, so that will be their official capital. But now that we looked a lot at new nations and expansion, we're going to look at exploration by the Indians. As the Indians will be, this southern Indian nation will be expanding greatly in mainland India, as obviously they're going to be leaving the Himalayas, which I think are like in this area, as they're also gonna manage to discover Bengal, which is pretty great for them as they were not expecting a new nation. And Bengal is also gonna discover them as this nation, which as Pakistan will expand more into Persia, and they will also discover this peninsula right here. As the Egyptians will also do massive explorations throughout these areas, and the Arabian parts, this nation will expand greatly, discovering this lake and more lakes. Then after that, we're going to see Cyprus also do some expansions throughout the coast here, as we're going to see the first ever, they were not able to do it here, but the first ever mountain explorations is here. We're going to see these mountains being fully discovered and fully mapped out, and we're going to see the Italians ask for the technology, saying, how did you do that? And after they gain it, they're going to manage to discover more of the Alps, which is most of that will lead for discovery, as we're going to see a talk in this nation's capital about the splitting of the Alps. So let's look at that. The split treaty, this nation right here, which is a very close nation to this region, will be by far getting the most territory. This nation will be, the red team will be also gaining a few territory. This nation, which is a very big country, will be gaining this territory right here. We're also gonna see this nation, South France, which I'm going to call it, gain this eastern territory, which was their actual goal, as they will look much more filled out. And we're going to now look back now at the Chinese, as Beijing right here will be doing, as Beijing right here, which is probably the strongest Chinese nation, will be doing massive explorations by sea and land, discovering a new territory. They're gonna tell their troops to scout out this land right here, as that will lead to Beijing discovering the Korean peninsula, which is crazy for them because they didn't expect there was an entire peninsula. As also this area will be more scouted out, as Jeju Island will be also discovered, and also this nation right here will discover a lot of Vietnam, which that will be crazy. As also Bengal, which has been doing a large amount of exploration, the time that we haven't been focusing on them, will discover this area right here of the mainland. And with more time, we're going to see them discover this entire peninsula. And Bengal, which this was happening before this big thing right here, we're going to see Bengal scout out they will manage to scout out the entire southeastern peninsula. As now we're going to look at expansion, as we're going to see Bengalese expansion being the biggest. So The Bengalese, which we are going to look at first, will do a massive expansion into India and into the Myanmar, into the wrong layer. I just realized. As Bengal right here will expand massively in India, which will be most area they'll focus on, as they will also expand into this area right here. And also this nation right here will expand into Jeju Island, will expand into that island which I do not know the name of, and also more of Vietnam and more inland also. This nation will still be very unstable, but they will still try to expand a little. And Beijing, which is probably the one who will make a border with this nation and expand here, and also create a small colony on the eastern side of Korea. And also Jeju Island. We love Jeju Island. The Indians right here will massively expand inland, as they will not claim the south, as those tribes are pretty strong to fully claim, as we're going to see them full on claim this area right here, which is a high amount of territory for the Indians, as the Pakistani right will try to claim most of the Persian coast. They will manage to succeed also claiming the UAE for some time. And that will be the end of this video. If you did enjoy, please do consider subscribing. It will be greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.